she remained silent for decades. The truth is now known, finally revealing the details of their sultry romance that no one knew about is one of Richard Burton's former co-stars. The startling thing isn't even that. Elizabeth Taylor was covertly visiting this actress in hotel rooms around Europe, even though she believed she was the sole woman in his life. Behind those closed doors, what took place? Why did she hold off on confessing everything until now? This is Richard Burton's previously unknown side. Richard Walter Jenkins Jr. was born on November 10, 1925, in a small cramped home in Pontrydefian, Wales, during a chilly winter night. Out of 13 children, he was the 12th. His father was a heavy drinker who worked in the coal mines. His mother was a gorgeous, powerful barmaid. The community was quiet, impoverished, and the air was heavy with coal dust. Not the sort of setting you'd expect to give birth to a famous actor. Tragedy happened when Richard was just 2 years old. After giving birth to her 13th child, his mother passed away. Richard's brother recalled their father saying, "Your mother has died," as he came downstairs, hardly able to speak. Richard was soon sent to Port Talbot to live with his older sister. He eventually acknowledged that all he could remember of his mother was an abrupt void where she had formerly been. His father, who was already estranged, became increasingly absent and became more involved in gambling and drinking. Richard did not attend his burial when he passed away in 1957. He would be marked for the rest of his life by these early losses, one from death and the other from neglect. However, when Richard met a teacher called Philip Burton, everything started to change. Despite the boy's unsteady speech and heavy accent, Philip recognized something unique in him and chose to assist him. He gave Richard rigorous instruction in speaking, acting, and discipline. Philip eventually assumed the role of his legal guardian. In an attempt to blend in with Oxford and the outside world, Richard even adopted the surname Burton, and it was successful. Richard enrolled in an RAF course at Oxford, made valuable acquaintances, and developed stage confidence with Philip's help and connections. Richard soon started working as a professional actor. He landed a part in The Druid's Rest in 1943, just before formally changing his name, and began a tour that finally led him to London. He also performed Shakespeare throughout his stay at Oxford, which helped him hone his skills. Then came larger roles. Emlyn Williams wrote a movie for him called The Last Days of Dolwyn, which he appeared in 1949. He married Sybil Williams in the same year. Playing Prince Hal in Henry IV Part 1 and Part 2 at the Shakespeare Memorial Theatre in 1951 marked the beginning of Richard Burton's ascent to prominence. After watching him act in The Boy with a Cart, director Anthony Quayle picked him at the age of 25. Quayle knew he had located Prince Hal right away. The plays had mixed reviews when they debuted at the Festival of Britain in Stratford-upon-Avon. Burton's performance, however, was noteworthy. Everyone was captivated by his theatrical presence and intensity. Kenneth Tynan, one critic, was really impressed. He claimed that as soon as Burton started talking, his performance transformed viewers' interest into astonishment. Even Hollywood celebrities Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart visited him and were moved. He was amazing, according to Bacall, and Bogart really adored him. In celebration, Burton got his first automobile and went to the Dirty Duck pub for a drink with Bogart. Burton's portrayal of Henry V later that summer revealed a more nuanced and sentimental monarch to the public. He added substance to the part with co-stars like Hazel Penworden and Barbara Jefford. The greatest accolade for a Shakespearean actor at the time was when critics began referring to him as the next Laurence Olivier. Burton joined the Old Vic Theatre's ambitious ambition to stage all of Shakespeare's plays over a 5-year period in 1953. His career took a significant shift at this time. He co-starred with Claire Bloom as Ophelia in Hamlet. His ability to give sentences that had been heard 1,000 times before a fresh meaning caught the attention of critics. He distinguished himself from previous actors in the role with his profound and contemplative portrayal of Hamlet. He went in a very another direction with Twelfth Night. He turned into a humorous inebriated knight named Sir Toby Belch. He was nearly unrecognizable, effortlessly transitioning from prince to clown. Critics, who mostly knew him for serious parts, were taken aback by his timing and physical humor. With costumes based on antique paintings and a setting that resembled an Italian garden, the play was intricately detailed. Playing a proud Roman commander in Coriolanus could have been his biggest test of the season. The conflict between pride and obligation was shown by sharing the stage with performers Claire Bloom and Faye Compton. These three performances demonstrated his versatility in humor, political drama, and tragedy. In 1955, Burton made yet another audacious move. On successive nights at the Old Vic, he and John Neville alternated between portraying Othello and Iago. The notion of alternating between hero and villain in the same play was uncommon and audacious. Michael Benthall, the filmmaker, thought it would show fresh sides to both characters. Yes, it did. Burton was strong and passionate in his role as Othello, despite some critics believing his speech lacked the poetic quality of others. He was cool, icy, shrewd, and serene in his role as Iago. People flocked to the theater to watch the two performers perform these well-known parts. Refusing to wear blackface for Othello was one of Burton's most notable decisions. Rather than using stereotypes, he suggested character with modest cosmetics. This demonstrated his respect for the post and was audacious for the time. Burton subsequently said that alternating between the two personalities allowed him to get a profound understanding of both the narrative and acting. It influenced his subsequent approach to every part. He took another unexpected action in 1960. He played King Arthur in the Broadway production of Camelot. Despite his lack of musical theater background, his performance was a hit. He gave the young king heart and earnestness, illustrating Arthur's transition from optimism to disillusionment. The production ran for more than 800 performances after opening at the Majestic Theatre. Burton even received his only Tony Award. He co-starred with Robert Goulet and Julie Andrews. Despite the show's rocky beginning, their connection lit up the stage. The hours-long early previews had to be shortened. However, the finished product was well received by viewers and turned into a cultural phenomenon. Following President John F. Kennedy's passing, the show's fame only grew. Jackie, his wife, claimed that he frequently listened to the before-bed record by the Camelot cast. The tale of the honorable monarch who had a fleeting, brilliant moment came to represent Kennedy's administration. Richard Burton made his Hollywood debut in 1952 with My Cousin Rachel, his first American feature. He portrayed Philip Ashley, a young man torn between mistrust and love. He co-starred with Olivia de Havilland, who was already well-known. Daphne du Maurier's work served as the inspiration for the film. After fighting with producer David O. Selznick, who had sought the tale for his wife Jennifer Jones, the studio, 20th Century Fox, had secured the rights to create it. There were some issues with the production. After disagreements with Nunnally Johnson, the producer and writer, and even du Maurier, who disapproved of the adaptation of the narrative, director George Cukor departed the project. Nevertheless, viewers were drawn to Burton's dramatic and emotional performance. American reviewers and audiences were impressed. The Academy nominated him for Best Supporting Actor, despite the fact that he was the film's narrator and star. In 1952, he was named the Most Promising Rookie and received a Golden Globe. His ascent in Hollywood began with that part, which attracted attention to him. Burton played a significant part in the grandiose biblical epic, The Robe, just a year later, in 1953. The fact that this film was the first to be seen in CinemaScope made it unique, a widescreen format that altered the visuals of films. Burton portrayed Marcellus Gallio, a Roman commander who participates in the execution of Christ, but eventually converts to Christianity. The picture became the highest-grossing film of the year due to its enormous popularity. Burton was nominated for another Oscar, this time for Best Actor. The nomination demonstrated that his talent was genuine, even though he did not win. His ability to direct large shows and maintain an audience on his own was demonstrated by The Robe's popularity. He played the titular part in Alexander the Great in 1956, taking on an even more grandiose role. The film had a large budget and was primarily shot in Spain. For a hefty sum, Fox rented Burton to another studio for this part. The movie tracked Alexander's development as a strong yet nuanced leader and had a global ensemble. Burton regarded the film as an opportunity to demonstrate his ability to play complex, nuanced roles. He felt it would help him project a more serious image. Despite his excellent performance, particularly during the fighting sequences, the film did not do well. The tale was too lengthy for many viewers and was difficult to follow. The film didn't do well financially, and the critics weren't impressed. This was a setback for Burton's budding career. Around the same time, in 1955, another unconventional decision was taken. He starred in the remake of an earlier movie called The Rains of Ranchipur. In contrast to Lana Turner, who portrayed a wealthy and scandalous lady attempting to woo him, he played Dr. Rama Safety, a distinguished Hindu physician. Burton didn't make much of an effort to appear Indian, given his distinct Welsh accent. No one was persuaded. Even though he darkened his complexion and donned a turban, there were rumors of a short romance between him and Turner off-screen. While some said they had a passionate relationship, others alleged they didn't get along. Although he didn't love her, Burton subsequently acknowledged that he thought she was pretty. He was still wed to Sybil Williams, his first wife at the time. It had long been known that Richard Burton pursued his co-stars. He made it his mission to woo the top women he worked with from the beginning of his career. It was practically expected of actresses back then, according to Joan Collins. They thought they had a right to it. That thought was taken seriously by Burton. He was affable, audacious and upfront about his goals. He was quite irritated when Joan Collins turned him down on The Sea Wife set in 1957. That is not possible. He informed her, "You're breaking my record." There was never any calm in Burton's romantic life. His lengthy marriage to Sybil Williams was marred by extramarital encounters. Years later, his former publicist Michael Munn's book contained one of the most shocking discoveries. According to the book, Burton and Marilyn Monroe had a long-running covert romance that began in the 1950s and continued until the early 1960s. This was more than a passing fancy. Even when he was married, it persisted until 1962 when he met Elizabeth Taylor on the set of Cleopatra. He was also said to be seeing Lana Turner, who co-starred with him in The Rains of Ranchipur, around the same time. Penny Junor, another biographer, said that everything appeared plausible. Given his fame, Burton would have been drawn to Monroe, the most prominent sex icon of the day. Rumors weren't the only source of that notoriety. According to Tom Rubathon, who wrote on Burton as well, the actor most certainly had sex with over 2,500 women. He characterized Burton as a meticulous planner who made advantage of all available resources, such as breaking into Stuart Granger's woodshed while his wife was inside. It was more than desire. Winning the game was something he enjoyed. However, nothing forewarned him of the subsequent events. Everything changed when Burton met Elizabeth Taylor. On the set of Cleopatra, they experienced their first genuine moment. Burton was trembling from a hangover. He was incapable of even steadying a coffee cup. "Hold this, love," he murmured to Taylor in that silent, vulnerable moment. "Are you going to put that in my mouth?" She did, and she subsequently said it was when she fell in love with him. The world was stunned when their relationship blossomed into a full-fledged romance. Newspapers were ablaze with pictures of them sharing a kiss aboard Italian boats. Because of how strong the media excitement was, astronaut John Glenn's orbit of the Earth was actually taken off the main pages. This narrative was that large. It wasn't only rumors, it was a worldwide fixation. They were pursued around Rome by photographers, who concealed behind bushes and took pictures from scooters. The outcry was swift. The Vatican itself stepped in, accusing Taylor of sexual vagrancy and deeming her morally unfit. They argued she should be separated from her children. The critique was harsh and biased. All the guilt was placed on Taylor, even though Burton had done the same thing. Her dad referred to her as a poor person. Friends turned away. She then claimed that the attack on the Vatican left her physically unwell, that she even got bomb threats, and that Italian officials had to safeguard her on set. Despite all of his past controversies, Burton was shocked by how significant this one had grown. "I've had affairs in the past," he joked angrily. "How could I have known the woman was so very well known?" Khrushchev is knocked off the main page by her. After their first night together, he boasted loudly in the makeup trailer, which didn't help things much. He said, "We just fucked in the back of my Cadillac." The situation became so heated that US politicians attempted to prevent them from returning to the country. They were destroying the morality of the country, some said. All of a sudden, their romance was more than a media drama. It was now a political matter. On March 15, 1964, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton were married in Montreal. It took place 9 days after Taylor and Eddie Fisher's divorce was officially finalized. Compared to the fauna they would eventually encounter, the wedding was rather tranquil. "You have gone through great travail in your love for each other," the minister said at the start of the ceremony. It was the beginning of a relationship that would not be straightforward. By combining Burton's 2 kids with Taylor's adoptive daughter and 2 boys from a prior marriage, they created a blended family. They gained notoriety as a pair for their extravagant lives. They traveled in luxury, had residences all over the world, and frequently hired several hotel suites to accommodate their boisterous arguments. They purchased many luxury automobiles, a boat, a private jet, and pricey artwork. The 33-carat Krupp diamond, the 50-carat La Peregrina pearl, and the 69-carat Taylor Burton diamond were among the gems that Burton lavished on Taylor. "I always thought it was sort of poetic that a good Jewish girl like me gets to wear it," Taylor once quipped. Despite its intensity, their love was harmful. They got into a heated argument, reconciled often, and ultimately got divorced in 1974. They had previously appeared together in the television film Divorce His, Divorce Hers. It was like art mimicking life, but that was not the end of the narrative. They shocked everyone by discreetly remarrying, only 16 months after their divorce. The event was held in a secluded community in Botswana on October 10, 1975. It was observed by just 2 members of the nearby wildlife lodge. It took 5 days for the public to learn about it. Although Taylor had previously stated that she would never want to experience such intense love again, it was obvious that they couldn't be apart. Additionally, their second marriage lasted only 9 months. Their long-standing issues returned immediately. Once compared them to 2 crazy people who live on the rim of a thrilling volcano. Burton acknowledged that "I'm difficult to live with or get married to after my second divorce. Elizabeth and I had dramatic explosions around twice a year, and she would blow up. Although that was amazing, it could be murder." Even after moving on and getting married to someone else, Taylor eventually wed John Warner, a politician. They continued to communicate. They spoke on the phone and occasionally got together. Burton even attended Taylor's 50th birthday celebration. Burton's personal journal entries were made public years after his passing in 1984. He described Taylor in them in frank and illuminating ways. He referred to her as "my own and personal purchased mistress" and "an endless one-night stand" in one entry. She struck him as complex and intensely sensual. Their fervor frequently descended into violence, particularly when alcohol was used. According to Taylor, Richard gets angry when he truly enjoys something. It's stunning to observe. However, their yelling altercations may get nasty. Burton wrote of an incident in which Taylor struck him on the head with her ring-covered hand in one of his diary entries. He wrote, "I would have killed any man who did that." In other instances, the harm was apparent. According to a studio official, Taylor took weeks to heal after showing up with black eyes and a swollen nose. She said that it was caused by a vehicle accident. Playing a tired British spy during the Cold War, Richard Burton gave one of his best performances to date in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. The 1965 publication coincided with a turbulent period in his personal life. His 14-year marriage had ended just 2 years prior, due to his romance with Elizabeth Taylor while filming Cleopatra. In jest, Burton referred to it as "less scandal," which caused the press to go crazy. However, he gave the part his all attention and intensity in spite of the commotion. He was nominated for an Academy Award for his portrayal of Alec Leamis, a shattered man feigning to defect behind the Iron Curtain, the Golden Laurel, and the David Di Donatello Award. His ability to depict the psychological weight of a guy caught in a world of deception particularly pleased critics. The movie itself took home 4 BAFTAs, including Best British Film, demonstrating Burton's ability to control the screen even at his most vulnerable moments. A few years later, in 1969, Burton was recognized for an Oscar once more, this time for his performance in Anne of the Thousand Days as King Henry VIII. He portrayed the notorious king with a mix of rage and vulnerability, portraying both the despotic ruler and the desperate man fixated on having a male successor. He and Taylor were one of the most well-known couples in the world at the time, making and spending a lot of money. To promote the movie, the production company went all out, even offering filet mignon and champagne to Academy voters before viewing. With 10 Oscar nominations for the movie, including one for Burton, the extravagant campaign paid off. Even though he lost, his performance was noteworthy. His classical background and increasing discernment in choosing his roles were reflected in the depth and gravity he gave to the part. He attributed his realization of how frequently he had undervalued himself to Taylor. Burton and Taylor had featured together in one of their most dramatic collaborations, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the previous year in 1966. The movie, which was based on a play by Edward Albee, depicted a marriage breaking down in real time. George was portrayed by Burton, a resentful scholar, engaged in a vicious verbal duel with his wife Martha, who is portrayed by Taylor. Their on-screen conflicts felt painfully genuine because of their real-life connection, which fueled the flames. With its unadulterated passion and graphic language, the movie made waves and garnered 13 Academy Award nominations, including one in each of the qualifying categories. Taylor took home the Best Actress award, while Burton left empty-handed once more. The performance is still among his most memorable though. The movie's place as a cultural milestone was solidified in 2013 when it was inducted to the National Film Registry. In 1977, almost 10 years later, Burton delivered a final stirring performance in Equus. He portrayed a disturbed doctor attempting to comprehend a teenage kid who had caused 6 horses to go blind. His health had deteriorated due to years of frequent drinking, and the movie followed a series of unsatisfactory efforts. His back discomfort was so bad during production that he had to shoot all of his lengthy monologues in a single day. That suffering seems to enhance his depiction of a guy facing his own insecurities and emptiness. Despite losing to Richard Dreyfuss, it gave him his 7th and last Oscar nomination. In the hopes of making a comeback, Burton had first accepted the part in the Broadway show the previous year. Despite the film's poor box office performance, reviewers commended his efforts. At one point, Richard Burton was regarded as one of the best performers of all time. Critics thought he would become another Laurence Olivier. However, his career had begun to deteriorate by the 1970s. He used to receive great main parts, were increasingly being given to younger celebrities. He took on a number of parts in films that were criticized by reviewers in order to meet his financial obligations. His personal life was also collapsing at the same time. Ivor, his older brother, who had been like a father to him, died in 1972 after becoming paralyzed in an accident in 1968. Burton's drinking got worse after that. His family life and career started to suffer. He appeared in films that were soon forgotten. He made appearances in Hammersmith is Out, Bluebeard, and the unpopular The Assassination of Trotsky in 1972 alone. Critics said that he was utterly miscast. Divorce His, Divorce Hers, which reunited him with Elizabeth Taylor in 1973, did not revive their previous romance. Films like The Klansman, Brief Encounter and The Unfinished Jackpot only contributed to his deterioration during the next years. Exorcist the Demaist. The Tyrantic, which was released in 1977 and was widely regarded as a failure, dealt him one of the worst blows to his career. Nevertheless, there were times when his skill was evident. His portrayal of a powerful psychiatrist in Equus, 1977 garnered him a nomination for his 7th and last Oscar. Burton's private life continued to garner media attention as the years passed. Susan Miller Hunt, a former model who had previously been married to racing driver James Hunt, was the woman he married in 1976. He had struggled with drinking for years, but she was credited with helping him cut back. After the turmoil of his 2 marriages to Elizabeth Taylor, their union appeared to provide some peace. Susan was considerably younger, and fiercely guarded their relationship. During Burton's Camelot tour in Toronto, she even ordered the theater crew to take Taylor's photos out of the shows. However, that romance was also short-lived. Pressures from their careers and health issues started to tear them apart. Although the news didn't surface until early in 1983, they began living apart in 1982. At the time, Burton was filming a miniseries about composer Richard Wagner while recuperating from severe surgery and a bleeding ulcer. Burton shocked everyone by getting married again shortly after his divorce from Susan was finalized. He married Sally Hayes in July 1983. He had met a 35-year-old former production assistant for the BBC in Vienna. His fifth and last marriage was this one. He was 57. One of his most impactful roles was his last movie. Burton portrayed the icy and cunning role of O'Brien in the 1984 movie adaptation of George Orwell's book. His portrayal was terrifying, and the movie was filmed in the same year as the book. He appeared worn out and exhausted, which only made the part seem more realistic. His deep voice remained powerful and authoritative despite his debilitated frame. His work was acclaimed by critics. The film adhered to Orwell's dismal view of the future by eschewing ostentatious effects. Burton's tone was nicely matched with the rough, gloomy photography. He co-starred alongside his daughter Kate in the television series Ellis Island, while working on 1984. It turned out to be his final on-screen role. Then all of a sudden he was gone. At his Swiss residence, Richard Burton passed away on August 5, 1984, due to a severe cerebral hemorrhage. He was just 58. Fans and other actors were taken aback by the revelation. He had recently completed what some believed to be the beginning of a resurgence. Although the bleeding was stated as the official cause of death, many people thought that years of heavy drinking and smoking were to blame. For the most of his life, Burton smoked a lot and was known to consume several bottles of beer each day. He was once informed by his father that he couldn't trust someone who didn't drink, and he carried that notion with him for much too long. Wearing red, his favorite color, he was laid to rest at the ancient cemetery of Selinghi, Switzerland, with poems by Welsh poet Dylan Thomas placed next to him. His favorite Welsh song was performed during a memorial ceremony in the chapel in his hometown. Richard Burton left a long reputation despite never winning an Oscar and receiving 7 nominations. He has more than 40 years of theatrical and movie acting experience. His fifth wife Sally and his 4 children, Kate and Jessica from his first marriage, Elizabeth, Liza, Todd and Maria, all of whom were adopted during his marriages to Elizabeth Taylor, survived him. Richard Burton's skill endured through all of the highs and lows,